This is the Ruckus and The Menace Sports Podcast.
Oh no! We suck again!
I'm getting confused. What game are you calling?
I'm calling both games!
It is caught by Kelsey! Touchdown! Kansas City!
I need 3 of those things, baby! We ain't done yet! We ain't done yet! You like that? You like that? I like that!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ruckus and The Menace Sports Podcast, episode number 91. I am Ruckus, always causing a ruckus.
And I'm Ruckus and The Menace.
And we will have the starting lineup that has the NFL, baseball moves, and whatnot. Then we'll go into the Clint Eastwood segment of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then we got our high heat, which is the MLB preview of the American League with the division standings prediction. And then we got our color commentary, which talks all about the NFL free agent frenzy of today. And then our sudden duds. Spennis, how are we doing?
We're doing good. Certainly been a day of mass chaos, as we will see here in just a moment. But in the sporting world, we've got ourselves quite a little bit going on, but really a lot of things that are also starting to unfold. And Ruckus, I will let you get to the major moves you want to speak of before we get into before I kind of close it out with a little bit of some of the teaser.
You want me to start talking about my man Stone Cold? Because I got a little audio clip for you guys. Is it okay if I put it in?
Go for it.
I need 3 of those things, baby! We ain't done yet! We ain't done yet! Kansas City, we will be back here next year. And for those who want Chris Jones gone, I ain't going nowhere, baby!
Alright, that was an audio clip of Chris Jones at the Super Bowl parade where he was preluding to staying with the Chiefs. This wasn't a guarantee 2 weeks ago, but now it happened. And also, can I also talk about Drew Tranquil?
Yep, that is it. This is actually because he is a player that is staying put, and this all happened just before day one. I think we've got ourselves an opportunity.
And then another football player retires, as well as Fletcher Cox is retiring from the NFL after 12 seasons.
I'm glad not seeing him twice a year.
Alright, what else do we want to...
we had the Brian Bello re-signing, or the extension with Boston, kind of a little bit of a secondary detail, but we have a couple of future things we have going on here in talking college hoops. Throughout this week, and with the women last week, Ruckus and I will be witnessing throughout this time teams punching their tickets to the big dance, the March Madness NCAA tournament throughout this week. On the next episode, as part of the High Heat, Ruckus and I will be breaking down the men's bracket and kind of giving maybe a small little speculation into the women's bracket, kind of more so looking into kind of predicting who we really think is going to come out of into the final four for that one. But a fuller breakdown of the men's bracket will go on, as Selection Sunday is this coming week. So we will have that go along. But this is also a very interesting time for us in terms of content beyond your standard episode. And that is because this Friday, is the early access point, and then next Tuesday, kind of shortly after the next week's episode, MLB The Show 24 releases.
On Taco Tuesday?
Well, I'll be getting it on Freestyle Friday, but but the game will release indeed on a Tuesday. And what we have content-wise coming up, guaranteed, we will have a March to October run. The tier lists have not officially been announced yet, but we are doing this. Details are to be determined on this, but it is happening. Primetime game showdowns in Diamond Dynasty. We will say it will be an occasional thing. It is something that we have to film outside of standard podcast planning hours, but it is something that can get done. The plan is to not have them conflict too heavily as far as recording and editing the March to October content. Release schedule of said things as far as March to October is still also on the to be determined. We'll be working these pieces out a little bit as we go along. I possibly could do a road to the show journey based on time, demand, and if the mode feels interesting enough for me to want to dive into it. If so, it's a possibility. If not, it's water under the bridge. But now that we kind of gotten into a lot of our possible future activity, we now can get into our Eastwood segment, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
All right, Spennis, I'll let you take.
I was gonna let you actually do the. I was gonna let you do the good this week, especially because it's a little bit of a homecoming for a major baseball legend, or at least possible future Hall of Famer.
Yep, and that future Hall of Famer is Mr. Joey Votto, a former Cincinnati Red, signing a minor league deal with the Toronto Blue Jays to continue his historic MLB career where he started in Canada. Canada.
He was also Canadian born too, so that kind of it helps him kind of return home.
Mm-hmm. And then, what was bad in sports this week, Spennis?
The bad this week involves a statue that was recently erected at Crypto.com Arena, and that was the number 8 statue of Kobe Bryant. There are multiple errors on the statue that need to be fixed. In the etched marble of the base of the statue, the name Jose Calderon and Von Wafer's names are both misspelled in the replica box score from Kobe's 81-point game between the Lakers and Raptors. There is also a formatting mistake on another side of the base where Kobe Bryant's career accomplishments are listed. They've been aware of it for a few weeks and are already working to get it corrected. The planned location and unveiling date of the other 2 statues, which is the Kobe Bryant number 24 statue, and then the one with Kobe and Gianna, are still to be determined according to a Lakers spokesperson. So they're already having to fix 2 problems, at minimum, on the number 8 statue for Kobe Bryant. Do you really think the Lakers are going to trust that sculptor again to do the other 2?
How about no?
I would say if you do, put the credibility of it into question. That is the only thing I have to say on it.
Or discount double check that.
They've probably already paid for it. They just haven't built it yet. But while that was kind of comically bad, let's go with the downright ugly in sports this week.
All right, the downright ugly this week. There has been a report of Chiefs fans needing amputations after the -4-degree game of the NFL wildcard at Arrowhead, including 12 people that either needed some toes or hands to quote unquote come off. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that would. Part of me feels like the people in the stands that were almost like pretty much half naked, like the guys that had their shirts off to like try to get on camera. I think those guys probably needed some hands to come off or toes. I
Okay.
don't know.
That game was played. What was it? Just standard on the thermometer, a -4.
Yeah, and then
And
the wind chill was
the
like
wind chills.
-18 or something like that. Something
Oh,
crazy.
no. If you're talking frostbite that bad, especially for having a couple hours out there, some of them even longer than 2 or 3 hours out there on the field, no, that wind chill was down in the. That had to have been down in the -30s. I mean, not quite freezer bowl level, or ice bowl level, but the Chiefs and Dolphins played in the 4th coldest game in NFL history. It was -4 with the wind gusts up to 27 miles per hour, making it -27, including wind chill. There was a reason why that game.
-27.
Yeah, there was a reason why that game should have been moved. I would have as much as home field is a thing. I think if you're talking wind chill of temperatures that bad, the NFL has got to do something when it comes to that. Move the game. I definitely don't think they would have moved the game to Dallas. They wouldn't have moved the game to Dallas because the Cowboys would have been playing the next day against the Packers. You move it to New Orleans, it's probably too close to. It's too close to Miami. The Texans, I think, were playing earlier in the day, so they couldn't really move that. So they really ran out of spots other than going to Minnesota for it, going into their dome, going into Lucas Oil Stadium. So there really were very limited domes without giving the Miami Dolphins what feels like a geographical home field advantage. Yes, I said that clearly, Ruckus. Geographical home field advantage. As much as you would hate having a neutral site game, for this reason, I think this is one of those times where you have to call for it.
I think y'all have gone soft at this point. Like, I have a feeling there was probably some stuff that wasn't said during those one of the colder games, or one of the coldest games in NFL history. They probably had some people get frostbite. They just didn't recover or report it as much as they do nowadays.
Yeah, but now it becomes not just safety for the players, but also safety for the fans. And in this society and culture that we are now living in, it is going to come down to that. As much as it's not liked, if it is going to have to come down to that for that reason, it's going to happen. This is something that the NFL definitely should look into. Whether or not a solution comes from or at least a possible plan comes into place for it, I don't know. But I am speaking more so on the basis of that, yes, yes, having to have a toe or a hand come off at this point sucks. But at the same time, this is money we're talking about here. That is why I think and it's also people's lives and livelihoods too. I mean, these people are paying an exorbitant amount of money to get into these playoff games. Yes, I get that.
I mean, you could also just not go to, or prepare better when it comes to that too.
No, that's why I'm saying I mean, minus the bundle up. Like, the bundle up clearly is one thing, but the reason why I was saying the better prepare, have a neutral site plan for just in case something is of adverse conditions. Buffalo and having their fans dig themselves out. Okay, that could have been avoided. You could have played this game. Well, you would have had very limited locations for it, but you could have played that game a little further south. I'm sure a team would be more than willing to lend you a stadium if they needed to.
Okay, here's the thing. This is the NFL we're talking about, and the amount of real F's they give about any of that is like a big giant zero. The only time they really actually give a damn is when like things are like really drastic, or could be like a thing of concern when it comes to things being I guess equal or almost comparative equal, because when the Bills and Bengals game was not played due to Damar Hamlin's near-death experience, they had
a plan in place for a neutral site game if it came down to the Bills and the Bengals. And I think it was the Chiefs and the Bills or something like that.
And that did not end up happening, because guess what? The Bills lost embarrassingly to the Bengals. But even then, like, there's some drastic shit that would have to happen for the NFL to actually give a damn. Like, -4 degrees. Okay. Yeah, the wind chill was bad, but it is what it is. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'm saying is that I anticipate the NFL to keep an eye out.
All right.
That is where I'm at.
Let's go into the high heat with the MLB Preview American League.
Yes.
Want to start
last week we did the National League. This week we're talking about our league, the American League, where both of our teams are in. And the first question we have is, which teams do we have a whole lot of excitement about?
Well, I'm saying this in a, because there's a lot of other teams I could have been excited for, but I wanted to change things up. And this is more in the villain role. The team I'm excited about this year, yes, they still have, like, some other players still there, but I'm thinking about the New York Yankees, as hopefully they can keep me excited with all the new villains they have now. They just added Juan Soto this offseason in a trade, and then they got Alex Verdugo, Trent Grisham, and a few other guys. They got Stroman late in the offseason as a new pitcher. I think they could become scary good in this AL East. Well, I'll just have to see if they could hold through and stand the course when it comes to midway through the season and near the end of the season, because the past couple of years, they've been pretty much most of their players have been on crutches, and they just somehow couldn't hold it down over there in the Bronx. Spennis, how about you?
Here's my thought on the Yankees. The Yankees are always in the villain room. I am sorry. There is a reason why my team just highly chants Yankees suck, Yankees suck. Because that's exactly what they do. They're terrible. They're terrible to us. We do not like them. As Red Sox fans, we despise them. We think they are the spawn of Satan.
Dude, as Chuck Charles Barkley would say, that's just terrible, Ernie. Just terrible.
So yes. The reason why I did not pick the Yankees is that because their whole villain thing is just, man, they're the villain. They're the villain. We know exactly. We know exactly what they are.
It's like that biker gang episode of SpongeBob. How tough are you?
But my excitement is a lot closer to home for me. And that is the Baltimore Orioles. Now, okay, hear me out here. Yes, the Baltimore Orioles had the best record in the American League. Yes, they got knocked out in the division series. But I am saying that the Orioles are exciting simply because this is more of a pickup where you left off. They went into a meteoric rise late in about on the backstretch of 2022, nearly making the playoffs. 2023, they're dominant. The excitement of this is, can they hold? Can they hold, and can they get even further than where they did the year before? There's intrigue here. It's a young core, and now they've added an ace of the rotation in Corbin Burns. There's a lot of intrigue about an hour and a half away from home. And I'm here for it. I'm a Red Sox fan, but I do not despise the Baltimore Orioles because it's, for my location, they're still home. And what about the lack of excitement? And I think we both were in agreement on one, but I had to write something to be a little bit separate.
Go ahead on yours.
I am saying the Detroit Tigers. I just have no excitement, buzz, or anything of any kind right now for the Detroit Tigers. I feel like they come into a season as nothing, they end up doing nothing, and they just basically right now are nothing. They're just there. The AL Central is an absolutely putrid division. No offense to your team there, Ruckus.
Dude, I've been saying this for like the past couple of years that they were a joke. So honestly, you're just preaching to the choir.
Yeah,
at this point.
It's like the AL Central just has, and we'll definitely hear it later. It's like the Twins. You might see a spark of the Guardians find some way to survive not having to go through a fire sale. The White Sox, who kind of just persistently stay present. And then there's everybody else.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man? All right. The team that I have no excitement for and I don't think anyone has excitement for, because they haven't had any excitement since maybe 2014, and it's not the Royals. It is the Oakland Athletics.
Athletics.
Because my God, they're like this. They're like the stinky gym sock that someone forgets in their locker, and then continues to forget it, and then everyone's wondering why it stinks so bad. And that's the Oakland Athletics.
Okay, they had some playoff runs in the late. I think in the late 2010s. I think they had a couple of playoff runs in there where there was some excitement. But then it's like some sort of outside force just suddenly decided, hey, we want to crash the party, take away their 2-star players on offense on the corners of their infield that basically were doing absolutely everything for them. And maybe a couple of those pieces in the rotation and bullpen. And they basically have just said the core of the team is gone. And it's like a team that just has no hope. They are more just hopeless rather than vibrant. I mean, they're getting out of Oakland, but at the same time, I think it's just Oakland. That stadium is so bad that I think they needed some sort of change of pace. And this move, should they get anything with Vegas to go, would be, I would say, in terms of an environment factor for them, an improvement. But I don't know about the quality of players that they are going to get, unless Vegas is a major attractor.
Yeah, I don't know either. Alright,
Yeah.
teams we may feel be a surprise.
And I think we went in a little bit of two different approaches here. You went for one that was more so started at the bottom and has a good chance of moving up into possibly a middle, maybe even an upper middle. While I have someone who's kind of maybe more in the middle to upper middle, and I'm thinking they might be able to stun their way to the top.
They will have to face a big foe in the AL West, that's for sure. For my foe
not just
is
one.
My foe is the AL Central, which is my surprise pick is the Kansas City Royals, because yeah, even though in reality I don't have too much hope for them. Yes, they signed a bunch of free agents, but I don't know if that's going to be enough. Like, yeah, everyone's hyping them up as, oh, this could be a better year or whatever. I don't see it. Sherman's been on my shit list ever since he made that professional FU to the fans about the new stadium. So I think my surprise is gonna be the Royals. It could have been the Pirates last year, because the Pirates had a really good start last year at the beginning, and then they kind of just fell off. But Spenis, who do you got?
I would like to answer the question of what is started at the bottom and we're still there. Just kidding. But hey, you did it to me earlier, so with the old man comment. Oh, but my team here on the surprise is actually the Seattle Mariners. And why am I saying the Seattle Mariners? They finished third in the AL West last year. They're kind of right there on the cusp of the playoff hunt. Why are you saying that they're a surprise? They're not really becoming all that surprising anymore. It's more so the two teams that are currently sitting above them in the Texas Rangers, who could possibly be dealing with World Series hangover, which can be a real thing. And then the second piece of it is also the Houston Astros in Dusty Baker retiring and them dealing with a new manager. There's a new skipper in town, so you never know how the skipper with the players on the staff could synergize. I mean, it always works a little better if that hire is internal, but you never know how styles of play can synergize. I think the Mariners have something going for them. I mean, you have the core pieces right there. It's just a matter of being able to get the wins at the right time to be able to push yourself beyond the ceiling that people think you have. And who is the team that you think will take a step back, Ruckus?
Well, we've kind of seen it over the years, and it's becoming even more apparent nowadays, and that is the Chicago White Sox. They have like maybe a couple aces, or Dylan Cease is the only one that ceases to exist on their team. Luis Robert and Ole Jimenez need to step up. You also have some other guys, but they lost Tim Anderson, which if you would have said at the beginning of last season, that would have been a huge blow. But this season, you would have said, okay, cool, all right, okay. And yeah, I think the White Sox are gonna be going into the washer to try to rebuild. What do you think, Spennis?
I mean, I'm in agreement on the White Sox. No Giolito, no Hendricks, no Tim Anderson. They still have Dylan Cease, who they could put into a fire sale at the deadline if the price is right and the situation calls for it. But I'm actually going into the AL East as well with a team that I think could suffer a major setback. And that is the Tampa Bay Rays. Okay. I have given a whole lot of praise over the years, or at least over the past months of this podcast being done, in saying that Tampa Bay is right now one of the best teams in turning a whole lot out of nada. Don't get that twisted. I am more so in saying that I think Tampa Bay is going to take a step back because there will be ways that I think the Red Sox can surge. There are ways that I think the Blue Jays still have talent over them. I think that Tampa Bay, in losing Glasnow and not really having a good second starter to kind of support Shane McClanahan, ultimately I think puts them more in a hurting spot than what we really, really think the Rays truly have. And I think it could be far enough that they could plummet. Granted that the Red Sox may have other issues as well, and these other teams above them may have certain weak points as well. I just think the Rays and also losing Wander Franco to his legal trouble and also having those situations where they want to play more of a Moneyball style due to their small market has changed the atmosphere.
Or if you really want to get dark into that, Devil Rays storyline, you could just play the song "Baby Come Back," do 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 do, "Baby Come Back," as Wander Franco is dealing with some shit. But yeah,
I'm gonna throw a flag on the play. Personal foul. Unnecessary reference of, or at least something that took it a little bit too far on the defense. Let's just move on to the players of interest. First down.
Players of interest for me. All right. I have the Royals outfielder Drew Waters as a player of interest, as like one of those low key candidates. As um last year he did all right, but then he suffered some setbacks with injuries. And then we have a dark horse candidate in Edward Julian of the Minnesota Twins, as he more so came into the scene later in the season. So like there wasn't a whole lot of tape on him to see whether how you could like gauge him until now. Spinnis, go ahead.
Okay, my first one is definitely very, very close to home in terms of where he's from, and that is Chase DeLauder, the number one prospect for the Cleveland Guardians farm system. At the end of last year, he was currently an Akron Rubber Duck. So the big question that we have here is where will he start this season? And how quickly can the climb get to eventually make the Guardians' major league roster? That is where we are at on Chase DeLauder. The dude mashes. So it's just a matter of whether all the other tools have him be able to come up into the major leagues this year or next year. The intrigue is definitely there. The next one I have is a no-dip Sherlock type of moment in talking about Jackson Holliday. The Baltimore prospect is probably, I think, going to be starting out the year in AAA. But it is only a matter of time that we will see Jackson Holliday move up into the major leagues, probably play a middle infield spot that may or may not be shortstop, and be able to try and take his talents into the show. It's not a matter of if with him, it's a matter of when. The next ones are a couple of young players from my own team, and they are Tristan Casas and Vaughn Grissom. I believe Grissom is currently hurt, but the 23-year-old, I think, does have some intrigue, especially being the planned person to play second base at Boston. You never know with that, because the last time Boston had a major long-term second baseman, David Ortiz did not even know his first name. And in case you don't know the story I'm talking about there and who I'm talking about in this case, I'm talking about Dustin Pedroia. Yep. The 2007 AL Rookie of the Year who I watched live during that season, and the 08 MVP, and a two-time World Series champ. 3 if you count 2018, but 2 for sure. And then the other one's the corner infielder Tristan Casas at first base. If CJ Cron's not playing first base, we're going to see Tristan Casas there. And I want to see kind of what he can bring to the table, because we tried with Bobby Dahlbeck. And the experiment had some successes and had some failures. But I think this is the kid we were really waiting on. This is the one I think we were really waiting on. Dahlbeck was just to kind of bridge the gap. This guy is the one that has the left-hand bat to be able to take it further into Fenway. But now we go straight into our division standings predictions. If Ruckus will have the slide up at this time, we will see. You will see our recap of last week in talking about the NL, and you'll see some blanks right now with the AL. And the question here is, I believe we are going to start in the West in talking about the Oakland Athletics. And we know exactly where they're going to line up in 5th place.
Yep. I think for sure they're going to be in the bottom of the dumpster, the first ones to be in the trash. And then for our 4th place, I have the Angels because...
I am in agreement with that on the Angels.
And then the 3rd place one, we have the Seattle Mariners. And then the Rangers, we have 2nd place. And then the Astros 1st.
I am one that may kind of flip-flop on this. And the reason why is that it just depends on how quickly the Rangers can get their major rotation pieces back from injury. If they come back early enough and stay healthy enough, I think the Rangers can overcome the Astros in the division. Or if they can manage to hit their way out of it.
Yep.
That is, I think that the Astros and the Rangers are probably right now those two that I think are going to flip-flop. But I probably will more lean toward the team from Arlington over the team from Houston.
Fair enough.
The AL Central in 5th place. I have the Detroit Tigers.
Okay, I had a panic attack there for a second. I'm gonna say the Royals are 3rd. That's putting it nicely.
Well, here's where I was at. I actually was going to have the Royals at 4th. Because the White Sox may have just enough early on to kind of keep the Royals in front of them. But I do agree with the top at that point in talking about the Guardians at 2nd and the Twins in 1st.
I think the White Sox are 4th. They lost Giolito. They're kind of in a whereas the Royals, I think, have enough, but I just don't know how much.
I just don't know if the climb is going to be quick enough for the Royals to jump to 3rd.
Yeah. All right. So the Orioles, I'll let you take that.
Well, actually, let's go ahead and start a little bit closer to the bottom. Unfortunately, I thought they would be in 4th, but I just don't think the rotation, especially with Giolito hurt, and some of the other major injuries that are going on in Beantown.
Give the Rays 5th place. Give the Rays 5th.
I was considering that just simply on the basis, but if Boston can find a way to hit themselves out of it, I think they jump.
Actually, yeah. And then we'll do the Orioles in 1st.
Yeah,
the
Orioles are going to win I think the Orioles are going to win the division.
I think the Yankees are going to win the wild card for the 30th time in a row. They always hover around the wild card anyways.
Yeah, I think the Guardians are one of those teams that I think could come out of nowhere and actually steal a wild card spot from the AL East. And be wary, the Twins are generally one of those teams. If they are surging well above the teams in the AL Central, like about 20 games or more, I wouldn't be surprised if the Twins eventually can find a way to get over the hump. But it all depends. There's a lot of that. A lot of key factors.
All right.
Now that we've wrapped up the MLB preview, and this also gives us a little bit of an open door for some special celebration in a couple of weeks as well. This is why we did our MLB preview a little earlier than we normally do. And we now can move on to our next segment of color commentary and talking about the NFL free agent frenzy. And it's only day one. And here are the major highlights or headlines from the first day alone. And the first one that I really have to kind of talk about, especially because the first overall pick does hang in the balance over this. Speculated Justin Fields suitors find quarterbacks in free agency. The Falcons splash big to have Kirk Cousins fly south. Yes, I did use a bird reference there in talking about flying south. The Steelers signed Russell Wilson on a veteran minimum deal, and the Denver Broncos are continuing to pay the tab.
Also, for Saul, and only for Saul, Steelers country. Let's ride. Let's ride. Let's ride. Okay, there we go. All right, let's keep going.
Enough. The Raiders choosing to snag Gardner Minshew in free agency, who's a little more of a backup in this case, but Stamos is dealing with a suspension, and I think he could get released.
Yep, and then his stunt double Gardner Minshew will stay there.
Out of these three moves, do we like, love, or hate them? And then the second piece of this is where does the second and probably more featured question in this, where does this leave the Bears' options and decisions involving their current starting quarterback?
We'll just have to see there, but honestly, with Atlanta, I think Chris Baker likes that. You like that? You like that? And then
I will say, as far as the Kirk Cousins one, I like it, but I'm not in love with it. And the reason why, even though they had Desmond Ridder, I believe that Raheem Morris was wanting a veteran quarterback, wanting someone with a little bit of experience to be able to do something. And I think that Kirk Cousins is that guy. But I also believe that Kirk Cousins would be willing, and probably more than willing, to mentor a quarterback like Desmond Ridder to eventually be able to kind of mold him and break some of those old habits to eventually, whenever it comes time for him to retire, that Ridder could step in and do a better job than where he was last year. That is the possibility that I see in Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta. The Steelers signing Russell Wilson. The biggest thing Russell Wilson has to cut is not the number of bathrooms in his house. It is his ego.
I didn't know the bathrooms was an issue. I thought it was more of his cooking.
Well, I'm going to say he had more. His first year in Denver, he had more bathrooms than touchdowns. Bathrooms in his house than touchdowns for a good long while. So that's where that joke came from. However, I think that if Russell Wilson can kind of temper the ego and cringe that he was in his later years in Seattle and his early year in Denver, I think that team in Pittsburgh could be good enough to surprise some people in the playoffs. It gives potential if all goes right. If all goes horribly wrong, this is going to collapse on itself. And then the Minshew move is just not all that much. But for me, I think It's better than nothing. But here's where I think the option leaves the Bears. It leaves the Bears in a situation where the teams that look to trade for Fields will either be teams that are looking for backups, and you demit like the value on Justin Fields at this point has just turned into pennies on the dollar and a donut. And a stale one at that. So honestly, I think where Chicago needs to go is honestly to hang on. Like you hang on to that pick. Or it's like you either trade out of the number 1 spot if you can get the King's ransom for it, or you look to draft Caleb Williams and potentially have him compete against Fields to make him earn it. Or you trade, or you figure out a way to kind of maybe not get as much as what you really wanted in return for Fields, just to have him out of your hair. There are new quarterback-hungry teams, but I don't think the Minnesota Vikings would be interested in that in-division business. I think the Vikings have other quarterbacks on their radar. They could be one of the teams that I think now that the Kirk Cousins thing is betting on, I think they're one of those teams that can look at a Bo Nix at 11. Possibility. A good West Coast quarterback just like Kirk Cousins. I mean, this puts Justin Jefferson in an interesting spot. But is Minnesota willing to trade up? Or are they going to kind of sit back and be patient for the quarterback that they can kind of work with here? I mean, there's quarterback needy teams, but some of the teams that people think desperately need a quarterback are also still sitting up high enough. The Bears, while the perception could be that they're desperate, they may not be that desperate. I think the Bears should explore are still exploring all options. And Ryan Poles is one that normally will try and find the best decision possible. Where do you stand on that, Ruckus?
Are we still talking quarterbacks?
We're still talking quarterbacks right now.
I don't know. I think the Raiders did a good thing by getting Gardner Minshew. It brings competitiveness to the Raiders quarterback room, as they only had Aiden O'Connell so far. And yeah, you still have John Stamos as stunt double, but I don't know. The Raiders, I think they played it safe. I don't know what the hell's gonna happen with the Bears. The Falcons, I think, did a decent job getting Kirk Cousins. I don't know if he was worth 4 years of their development, because the man's getting older. He's coming off an ACL injury.
No, it's Achilles. It's an Achilles, not an ACL.
Anyways, I don't know how impactful he is with the Falcons, but I think he does more than Desmond Ridder could do. But at the same time, you're getting a new head coach over there, and it should help the offensive development. I'm not sure how much, but their defense is doing alright, and I think this will really help boost their offense. I don't think Justin Fields would have been the answer in Atlanta, if I'm going to be real with you, because Justin Fields, he showed a lot of promise in college, and then it didn't really translate to the pros. And people will be quick to defend Justin Fields and say, hey, he played in a bad system with the Bears or whatever, and Matt Nagy, this and that, but it's like, at the end of the day, you gotta show up.
The run-first quarterback has not it has not been a quarterback type that has lasted, that has not had a great longevity to their career. Health has been a major issue, or at least quarterbacks with massive amount of mobility. RG Knee, as an example. Yes, I still call him RG Knee, but it's Robert Griffin III was an example.
Yeah, Fields, I also feel like had a throwing arm too, kind of like Mahomes.
Yeah, so but that's also. But then you also could say the same thing with Michael Vick, but Michael Vick was nowhere near accurate. Michael Vick was kind of the one that showed that quarterbacks that could have a high rate of mobility are possible. But you still have to manage the wisdom of the load that you want your quarterback to take and the punishment that you want your quarterback to take physically when he chooses to go outside the pocket and run. You gotta be astute about it.
Yeah.
And with a player like Fields who had dealt with an injury last year, it raises some red flags.
All right, let's go into the running back swap meet.
Yes, the running back swap meet. A whole bunch of running backs changed teams. Round and round this goes. Where the landing spots are, we're gonna tell you here, so now you know. Saquon Barkley goes to division rival Philadelphia from the New York Giants, while Philadelphia's previous running back moves over to the Bears.
DeAndre Swift.
Tony Pollard goes from Dallas to Nashville. Austin Eckler changes coasts, going from the West Coast to the East Coast as he goes from LA to DC. Josh Jacobs goes from one team with a historical reputation to another as he is leaving the Las Vegas Raiders and moving to the Pack. Gus Edwards reunites with Greg Roman as he moves from Baltimore to LA. Devin Singletary goes from the Texans to the Giants, and Antonio Gibson goes from Washington to Boston in being a running back in the system for the New England Patriots. The question here is, which of these running back moves do we like best? And secondly, what does this do for Derrick Henry?
I think that just means that his asking price is higher than most of these running backs here. Saquon is probably the highest paid out of all these, I feel.
Yes.
And Saquon, here's the deal with Saquon, though. I don't know if he's the answer for Philly. Yes, you paid him all this money, but his only good year was when he wasn't hurt, and that was last year when the Giants decided to give Danny Dimes the bag and then franchise tag Saquon. And then the next year Saquon gets hurt. So it's like, I don't know. He's had ankle issue after ankle issue. We'll see how he fares in Philly, but we just have to see. Switch to the Bears, I think, will be alright. I don't have a huge opinion on that. Tony Pollard to the Titans was an interesting one because I thought I saw an article last week saying that he wanted to take the minimum deal to stay with the Cowboys, but I guess Jerry World had other plans. Austin Eckler to the Commanders, I think, is a good pick for the Commanders as it adds a little bit more depth to the running back room over in Washington. And then Josh Jacobs to the Packers really surprised me because I thought he was either going to sign somewhere in the AFC, or go like on a super team somewhere. That one surprised me a little bit. The Aaron Jones release also surprised me a little bit, but it makes
Yes,
sense.
that led to the Aaron Jones release, which was
Um,
why the Packers were able to get Josh Jacobs.
and then Gus Edwards to the Chargers. Cool. Don't care. I'm gonna move on. Singletary to the Giants. It gives me some hope that the running game for the Giants will be all right. Singletary is going back to New York after 1 year in Houston, so that'll be interesting because he originally played for the Buffalo Bills, which is also in New York. And then Antonio Gibson to the Patriots. I think that's a good neutral pickup there.
It
Um,
alarm it makes the Patriots have to have some interesting decisions involving Ramondre Stevenson and Ezekiel Elliott as far as Antonio Gibson goes. I think the best one out of the bunch, and I'm not saying this just simply because of hype, but the toughest part is now what does this do for the identity of the running game, especially with you having Brian Robinson in the lineup? And that is Austin Eckler to the Commanders. I think that Austin Eckler brings a more reliable set of receiving hands, a reliability to hang on to the football. He is almost 30. So that is a little bit of a red flag, but I think that's why the deal was short. I think that Austin Eckler should bring about a presence to cause the Commanders to not forget to run the football. Though Austin Eckler can catch passes out of the backfield, Austin Eckler still, as a runner, is solid. So I think that is probably the best one out of the bunch. What this does for Derrick Henry is that I think it limits the possibilities of where he can go down to really two locations if the price is right. And they are Dallas and Baltimore. The best fit, I think, for Henry is probably Baltimore. Because that you have the read option with probably one of the fastest quarterbacks on the outside and one of the most bruising running backs going up the middle. You're either getting punished by getting burnt like toast or ran over by a freight train. Pick your poison. Pick your poison and choose wisely.
yeah. All right. Let's change gears to the edge rushers.
Yep, we now go to the edge rushers changing hands. The Giants made a blockbuster trade in sending a second and a fifth to the Carolina Panthers for Brian Burns. The Eagles signing Bryce Huff. Dorrance Armstrong reuniting with Dan Quinn in coming to the Commanders. Leonard Floyd to San Francisco, leading to the release of Eric Armstead. Zadarius Smith reunites with Cleveland. And Jonathan Grenard, the Houston rusher, goes to Minnesota. Which of these do you think could have the best value?
Well, the Giants added a little bit of defensive weaponry with Brian Burns if he stays healthy. That is, because you have Kayvon Thibodeau, over in the Giants.
Avon Thibodeau on one side and Brian Burns on the other. That as a pass rush, if you don't have tackles and tight ends that can account for that extremely well, yeah, you're running into a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, and then the Eagles with getting Bryce Huff. I don't really know who Bryce Huff is, but good for the Eagles. Armstrong to the
Rusher for the
Commanders.
Jets. He was the rusher for the Jets.
Okay. And then Armstrong looks like a good candidate. Leonard Floyd to the 49ers, I'm a little iffy about. He's been around for a long time, but we'll see. Zadarius Smith with the Browns, I think that's a good signing to keep some of the edge back for the Browns. And then
you pair him with Myles Garrett. That's a scary combination.
And then Jonathan Grenard to the Vikings. I think that'll be an interesting more powerful defense. I don't know if that. I don't know if the Vikings' defense of pieces are still all there, but if
it leaves
they don't. They
it
still
leaves
need
Danielle Hunter
Hunter
still on the board.
Yeah.
Leonard Floyd going to the 49ers leaves Chase Young on the board. Jonathan Grenard to the Minnesota leaves Danielle Hunter on the board. That's basically what happened there. And we have two major big splash free agent moves in Christian Wilkins to the Raiders and Xavier McKinney to the Packers. I think a team that really has quietly made moves, but has made extremely strong moves in their quietness, might just actually be the Packers.
Dude, I thought the Christian Wilkins move was good too for the Raiders. It's bad for the Chiefs because they have to deal with more defensive horsepower with the Raiders because they still have Mad Max over
you
there.
still have Max Crosby. And now you have Christian Wilkins in the interior. I mean, that really could be something. But what I like about what the Packers did was that they were so economical in improving their team, or at least the outlook of their team, with just 2 moves. Washington had about 4 moves, and I think they've improved as well. But the Packers have made the most out of every mile out of their moves. In getting a safety like Xavier McKinney, and then to go on top of that, getting a feature back in Josh Jacobs that kind of needed a change of scenery out of Las Vegas. And what better way than to go to Lambeau? So I'm considering the Packers winners for the amount of efficiency in their moves. The Christian Wilkins to the Raiders does improve that defensive line. And I think that they will become a scary proposition, but I think they need some help elsewhere in that. And I think the Raiders do need to kind of make some splashes in the secondary.
Yeah.
Whether it be the draft or... But notable names that are still on the board. Running backs in Derrick Henry and Aaron Jones. Hollywood Brown. Offensive tackles Tyron Smith and Trent Brown. Edge rushers, and plenty of them. Danielle Hunter, Chase Young, Shaq Barrett. Leonard Williams and Eric Armstead as far as D linemen. Patrick Queen, Levante David, Devin White, and the linebackers. Kendall Fuller and Stephon Gilmore as corners. And then 3 safeties in CJ Gardner-Johnson, Cam Curl, and Justin Simmons. Granted that this is only day 1, but do we think that we're going to find some notable homes for some of these teams in day 2? Or even a little later?
I think more your pass rushers might go quicker rather than later because there's a big need for that, and there's a big need for corners as well. So you might see Kendall Fuller move off the board. You might see Stephon Gilmore come off the board. Who knows? But it could. I think the biggest move before you get those free agents signed is who who goes after L'Jarius Sneed?
Well, but realize that if you have to go after L'Jarius Sneed, realize that that has to be done. Well, the Chiefs have the chance to match. That is the reason why I think some of these non-exclusives could end up staying put. But T. Higgins has also requested a trade. So the Bengals may look at possibly getting rid of T. Higgins. And that's a shock.
Not really. I feel like most of the time when a player is unhappy with the organization paying them for whatever it is, makes sense. Because then you can have some. Because they could have chosen to stick with the franchise tag and be happy with the money they're gonna get instead of being like, well, I'd rather get more money somewhere else because I'm unhappy with this or that. It's like, come on. It just seems a little selfish, but I think it's more the agents talking rather than the actual player.
Anyways. It may be agent speak at that point.
All right. So, do you want me to go first on our stud and dud?
Yep. Go for it.
Right. I will start with my duds. So, my first dud is KU falling to Houston, giving up the number 1 seed and a huge blowout victory for Houston. Yikes. Also, they had.
And you're talking the number 1 seed of the Big 10 or Big 12 tournament.
Yep. And then my honorable mention for my dud is Russell Wilson signing with the Steelers. Steelers country, let's ride. And then my stud is Brett Veach for retaining some key players for the start of free agency, and that being Chris Jones and Drew Tranquill. I still think it's crazy that they managed to get Drew. I mean, the Drew signing was pretty good, 3 years, $19 million, so essentially $6 million a year. And then Chris Jones was a big surprise. To me, I thought it was crazy that he got the bag for what it was worth, because I thought they were going to be more conservative with the money, but no, they gave him the bag, and now it'll be interesting to see how the next coming years go with signing the rookie players to big contracts, but we'll just have to see how that goes. Spinnis! Here we go.
All right. So my first thing that I am going to address is my stud, and that is to the guys that will be releasing their game later this week. Sony San Diego Studio has channeled a league of their own in creating a Road to the Show mode called Women Pave Their Way, as they will introduce for the first time ever a female baseball player that you can use in a Road to the Show type mode. They also set up, I think, the framework for this in talking about one of their players in the Negro League's storyline mode when they added Tony Stone, the Trailblazer. So, and the narrative sides of it, they went into a bunch of interviews about this. And I think that for especially women who enjoy baseball, and even enjoying baseball video games as well, but I would say just women who enjoy baseball and kind of want to have their stamp on a Road to the Show mode without having to play as a male player, this is perfect. Like, they have done the exact equitable and kind of done right by the fan base that they have. And there was definitely some intrigue as Ashley Sanders was speaking on it, or at least even asking the interview questions during the feature premiere of it. So that to me just seeing how the way is becoming paved. Will I personally play the mode? I'm not a big Road to the Show guy. I'd be making a male player for Road to the Show. I may give it a look-see, or at least see, or at least watch some footage. But I don't know if I'll have the time to do it myself. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But my dud goes, of course, into some of the controversy of sports betting and even the players on the floor trying to play the whole rigged card. And that is Timberwolves center Rudy Gobert for drawing a technical foul for flashing the money gesture to an official, stating the message that betting is part of the problem with referees. And even worse, the NBA just looked at him like Jerry Maguire and saying, "Show me the money!" As he got fined 6 figures. No, yeah, 6 figures. Got fined $100K by the National Basketball Association for that move. I mean, the fact that you gotta find $100K and you're trying to bring to light an issue is what, like, are two different things. You're trying to bring light to an issue. Yes, that's one thing. But don't do it right in the face of a ref. Don't even do it in the public eye. Especially if you're that kind of a figure.
Especially a dude that also drew controversy early during COVID, too, when he was licking the microphone and touching things. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. But it's also hard when he's also a Frenchman, too, in his own nature. Which I don't think... I think that pretty much... I don't know if other countries outside of us have a whole lot of legal sports betting, but I know that we here in America definitely do in a good amount of more states than just one. But I know it is not nationwide.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yep. But Ruckus, on that note, go ahead and take us out.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the Ruckus and the Menace Sports Podcast. This is episode number 91 of the Ruckus and the Menace Sports Podcast. I am Ruckus, always causing a ruckus.
And I'm Ruckus the Menace.
And we'll see you guys later. This has been a Ruckus and the Menace Sports production. See y'all later.
Deuces.